my message is we've got to keep going, we've got to go deeper, and we've got to figure out how we get to bigger outcomes, greater impact, and sustainable scale so that we can really move all kids. And that is hard work. And it's not just the work of the schools. This is one of the things that drew me from the get-go to the campaign and to Ralph, when we could out loud finally say, schools can't do this work alone. And Charlie, as a school board member, I'm sure you've had this experience where people, the public expects you to solve the problem. You're the elected official who got put into this seat to improve things, to improve conditions for children in the schools. Or you might blame the teachers, or you might blame the principal, or you might. And what we know now is that the act of learning to read does not start in kindergarten. And it doesn't really go even in the depths of where we need to go in second and third grade. It happens at birth. And the work that communities are taking on and focusing on these 0 to 5 years is so important. But the challenge is, how do we make these connections between what is happening with communities, early ed programs, health programs, all of what we know are the inputs in the early years. How do we then connect that to the formal systems in K through 12? I come from LA, and so in LA, English language learners are not a subpopulation, they are the population. And we still don't do it right. We're getting better, and finally California reversed that very bad English-only law. We just passed it this November. So we're on a different trajectory in California, but thank God for the science that tells us this, because when I used to talk about this, I would get the rolling of the eyes. I would get the, oh yeah, we're just another Hispanic lady who's just fighting for her Hispanic kids. And so, I would need other people to talk about this so that people could listen. And even then, it was so hard to penetrate. But we now have real science, real, research that bears out that the problem is not that you're an English learner. The problem is that we have not provided you the opportunity, not just to learn, but to soar, because we know it can happen. So that's really an ongoing learning. We're bringing these materials and information and the science to the campaign community so that they can help us reverse the perverse thinking that we've had around English language learners. Is it hard? Yes. Especially for kids that come to this country a little older. So we also have to recognize that, and in fact Ralph just told me this the other day, I had no idea, that when I shared with him, I was on the school board at the time, I said, Ralph, you gotta be really careful about this third grade, this grade, because if you're an English learner, it takes at least 5 years to become proficient in another language. So don't ding communities that may not have, at third grade, achieved the proficiency levels, because they may have a lot of English learners, and we gotta give them until 5th grade. So he shared with me that that's why they didn't call it the campaign for third grade level reading, because he was not aware that we needed to make that distinction for EL kids, of which we have many in this country. I'm an English learner, so I come with a very clear belief that being an English learner does not limit your possibilities, it actually augments your possibilities. But we have lived in a country that has not acknowledged the assets, in particular the language, that other children bring. And so in many places, California has been one of the worst until recently. We chose to pass laws that would take away that child's first language and minimize the opportunity for them to learn that language so that they might learn English. Fortunately, we now, in the last 10 years, have had the science and the research to suggest that you don't need to give up your language to be able to learn English. In fact, it hurts you in learning English if you give up your language. Because the most important thing to learn English or another language and to learn to read is to have strong language development in whatever language you are born with. And the mistake that we have made is that we have, in some way, told parents not to talk to their children in their native language, else we confuse them, or that they might never learn English. The first thing that any community can do is to debunk that myth immediately. Because what is happening to EL kids is that they start kindergarten, the vast majority, with language development deficiencies. Not the deficiency that they don't know English, but that they didn't have language development in their own language. So this is why campaigns like Talk, Read, Sing, or Vroom that emphasize talking, reading, singing in any language, that's the fuel that you need in order to be able to learn and acquire a second language. So we have had it wrong for so long, and that has hampered thousands and thousands and thousands of children in this country.